went to see it twice because it was so dense for me. I love Puerto Rican Spanish, and I don't get it all the time because it does go fast. But for me, it does go fast. So sometimes I was distracted by the translation. Sometimes I was like, oh, that's how they say it, okay. But it was so rich. It was such a feast for the eyes, and I loved the staging, and I loved the use of the multimedia, and I loved all the characters. I found myself really drawn to all the characters. And I was really glad, you know, when the stories are coming together, I wish I could see it again because it's so rich. And yes, the caliber of acting was very good. So thank you so much. It's just, you know, it just raised the bar for me. It just really raised the bar.
Thank you.
Just love the play so much, and the production. And I experienced it in such a bicultural way, because there were times when I got it in Spanish, and there were a lot of times when I was like, what? And I'd have to look at the super titles because, you know, the Puerto Rican Spanish is so much faster for Mexican brain. A tired Mexican brain. So it was just delightful to be able to experience it that way. You know, that it totally, you know, spoke to me as a, you know, as a Mexican American Chicana. You know, and your performances were, you know, magnificent. And oh, Lucy and I, after he said we saw you guys, he came up to us and he goes, now those are actors. And Lucy and I we looked at each other like, okay, what are we? But anyway, so thank you.
I was so impressed and glad. And you know, I saw this play, and of course I read this play, and I saw it on New York. And the experience of seeing, and it's so interesting to hear you talk about it. Because I think it's maybe because where you're coming from, as Puerto Ricans from Puerto Rico, looking at it far away, the analysis become much more clear than even the way we see it. And it probably, because I was talking to somebody who said, why is it so different? Well, the Anglo character who is played by Gerardo makes a big difference. And the Japanese character, that by the end of it, I think she's a Japanese Puerto Rican, I don't question it. You know, in the play, the African-American character who lives right here in Los Angeles and where I live, you know, close by, so I know those characters, goes to Japan, but she doesn't know he's black. So they see each other, and she goes, hey, how are you? Let's go, you know, have a happy life. But the truth is that Japan is a different country. In the way that they don't see that many black people. So if a black man comes into the airport, it's a different thing. So to me, that idea, which I questioned in the New York production, and also in the idea, you know, I'm not into the white savior idea. So when I saw it, the young white man who takes care of the mother becomes the savior, and I have, you know, just cultural reactions to that idea. You know, so when it's somebody older, and you know, it was phenomenal, and of course the Hiram speech, you know, about you know the water by the spoonful monologue. It was amazing. I was moved. I believe you. I saw that. So all these little moments, to me, I really, really appreciated in the rigor of the work. You know, if I have one comment, I'm sitting there thinking, because it was a new space for you guys, and he will not go into the light, and I would say, don't get out of the light, don't get out, stay in the light, get out, when he will walk away, you know, but it's because it was a space, but it was wonderful. Congratulations.
Con respecto a la rapidez de que hablamos los boricuas, ¿no?
We speak very fast. He wants to make a comment about that.
Pero además, fue algo, lo trabajamos. Cuando uno chatea, uno no pide permiso para hablar. Uno simplemente escribe y da send. Y tú no sabes quién va a entrar primero dentro del chat. No están las reglas establecidas del diálogo en persona. Y lo trabajamos muchísimo con los actores porque fue muy difícil para ellos estar en ese nivel de energía chatting de who's going to be first. Sin verse, porque no había esta conexión.
When we type in a chat, we don't usually ask for permission. We just type, and that's it. And it doesn't matter how I'm going to add something. It doesn't matter how quickly you do it or not. You just hit send, and it just goes away. But it was something practiced, and it was something intentional that they did, and especially because they were not seeing each other. So maybe the rhythm in which they were talking is basically and contrasted in the way not only that they would speak just for being Puerto Ricans, but they would type in the essential necessity that the chat had.
Creíamos que si no lográbamos, de hecho para los puertorriqueños inclusive en ocasiones pudo haber sido difícil poder prestar lo que decía el compañero, ¿no? Somos una generación multitasking y el público de mi generación hacia abajo desea el seleccionar dónde quiere enfocar su atención.
We're a multimedia generation, so we think that even our generation or generations younger than us need that kind of multimedia like our partner Javier was saying.
So, creíamos que si no teníamos eso, pues no íbamos a tener el espíritu del chat, verdaderamente, donde no hay las normas de educación que normalmente se tienen en un diálogo personal.
In terms of, you know, I mean, yeah, all the athletes is great, but in terms of your process, did you rehearse it in English first, or do you guys ever try that first, just to see what that sounds like before you get into the translating it, or do you just start off right away, just the translation?
There was a discussion about that because, you know, we present the first time this production at the Festival Teatro Puertorriqueño with the Instituto de Cultura Puertorriqueña, and it's hard to understand in Puerto Rico that you can find a play that is Puerto Rican but it's not written in Spanish. So we worked with the translator Isabel, and she was hand with Quiara. But after that, there was a lot of changes that we made on the rehearsal space, especially because, you know, this thing that this Manuel created with the actors about these screens and that stuff. It must be modified when they talk. Even though for me that I'm not Puerto Rican, I've been there for 7 years, it's hard to understand sometimes that. But it was great to be able to do it in Spanish. Even for Elliot, who came to the show on the real Elliot came on Thursday and on Saturday with his family, and he was telling how touching was for him seeing those characters talking in Spanish. Even he is afraid to talk in Spanish because he no quiere hacer el ridículo, dice. But the process was, you know, created on. It was a translation, but they did a lot of work on the rehearsal space after that.
Una traducción teatral debe potenciar la acción, ¿no?
A translation should just go make action.
Y pues en ocasiones el traductor necesita el espacio de ensayo, necesita ver los actores haciendo para poder tomar la mejor decisión de cuál es el verbo que mejor potencia la acción.
The translator should be there at the room just watching the actors say the piece so he can know, especially in terms of subtext and meaning.
So, que el proceso de traducción es un proceso, cuando se hace para teatro, el traductor tiene que estar available para trabajar también en el salón de ensayo.
I wanted to make a very quick comment. I had the opportunity to read the piece in English before, and then I read the translation in Spanish, and I went page by page, just lining up the lines. I read it in Spanish, then in English, read it in Spanish, then in English. And there's a really interesting thing because Quiara is not a Spanish speaker, so it's impossible for her to write a play in Spanish. But the meaning, the thing, when I read it in English after reading the translation, it was written in Spanish, English. It's meant to be said in Puerto Rican English, you know? And it was very interesting when I went line by line because I could color the lines in English with the Spanish rhythms, with the Spanish colors, with the Spanish meaning. So I could parallel those two things, and it was really interesting. And also, talking about dissonance, the keyboard is a kind of music. When you write in the keyboard, and there it goes. And it's a kind of musical thing, and she's very attached to music, obviously. But that jazz, that Coltrane thing, also reflects on the chat's reality, what they're doing. And the ad-libs that Manuel wanted is the thing that we do when we chat. We receive a comment or a text and we go, este tipo que loco. And you really talk to him, even though you're just reading a text or you're just reading, and you get something big, the computer goes beep, you have a message and you go, ay, esa debe ser tal persona. This should be a text from, oh, this is an email from Rafa, or this, and you talk to yourself. So
we have a quick question. So this play is part of a trilogy. Quiara Hudes won the Pulitzer Prize for this particular play, but all three plays, Elliot Soldiers Viewed, this play, and The Happiest Song Plays Last, look at many things, Elliot's journey as an Iraq War veteran, but also each play has a musical exploration. So the fugue, jazz in your play, and Hibara music in the third play. So in your play, there's a monologue that you have about Coltrane and jazz, and about dissonance. And I was really interested how you have these different virtual worlds separated on stage and the live world. So could you talk about how dissonance works in your aesthetic for this play, and how you chose these virtual worlds versus the very real world?
La disonancia, sí, la realidad es que Jazz, el personaje que interpretaba Ginoel, que es básicamente el personaje de Quiara Alegría, inserso dentro de la pieza, nos da esta clase sobre la disonancia, inspirada en la música de Coltrane. La pieza, en esa clase ya habla sobre la libertad que produjo la disonancia integrada por Coltrane. Esa libertad que está en búsqueda del personaje de Jazz, romper con muchas cosas establecidas en su vida. De hecho, su personaje se llama Jazz.
Jazz, which is Quiara Alegría Hudes, she's projected throughout. Quiara Alegría Hudes is projected through jazz in the play, and she talks about liberty also. And that liberty is projected in how the piece moves around. In the real characters as Jazz, her name is Jazz, and she talks about Coltrane and music, but also throughout the other characters in the chat also.
Al final de la pieza, ella, el personaje, decide romper con cosas que la habían atado. Por ejemplo, ella es una latina asimilada hacia un matrimonio blanco que la obligó inclusive en ocasiones a abandonar las culturas y las costumbres latinas y a sentirse asimilada dentro de una familia blanca.
Jazz makes the decision to embrace her liberty because she was hooked on a white American kind of living. For sometimes she abandoned her roots as a Latin/Puerto Rican, and she embraced this whole American culture and way of living. And she makes a decision at the end of the play to just take her liberty back, and liberty means...
Read all these reflections here, and that is that the voices of the artists and the different plays, the more specific, the more unique, the more yours it is, the more fascinating it is for the audience members, I believe, and so much we worry about being mainstream and speak, you know, and I think this only solidifies the fact that our strength is in who we are, indeed, our true, capturing what you just said, you know, our essence. That is what is, I think, theatrical and our strength.
Tiffany Vega from New York. As a person who saw the original production at Second Stage, and I apologize to my friends who were in the production in New York, this hit me so much more emotionally. I mean, I walked directly out the theater, directly out the door, and went straight to my hotel room. I couldn't look a person in the eye because it left me so much more emotional. And just the aesthetics that were used, the chats, how they were used, it really just told the story so much more. And this is more of a general comment of what I have noticed seeing all of the shows, the 11 shows that we've seen. I always say that I walked into the University of Maryland a New Rican and walked out a Latina. Okay? And I'm saying this because we have seen so many stories from many different countries. And I think it's our responsibilities, no matter where we're from, whether we're Chicano, Mexican, Honduran, or Puerto Rican, that we need to educate ourselves about all of our histories. Because as Keenan said so eloquently this morning, that we are national leaders. And the only way to unify us all is to know each other's stories. I think that's what really important. I've been writing down names of people, places, and events that I didn't know in the plays, and I really encourage us all to go back and look at all of our histories and see how they correspond. You know, we have, you know, we keep on talking about the Farmers Union. Not many people know about Operation Bootstrap, and the fact was that, you know, like, for instance, Puerto Ricans, we couldn't speak English, but we had papers. So if you just even look up that. Yeah, I really encourage everybody and this archival, whatever, look up our histories.
I love the play, and I felt very Puerto Rican watching it. I really did, and I love the energy, you know, the rhythm, you know, which I am not used to seeing on stage here in California, so that was wonderful. The truth is that thematically, also, you know, this topic of connections and disconnections that we associate with the internet, I could see it also in the characters, the way they imagine Puerto Rico, or, you know, the way they are connected to this idea of what is Puerto Rico as a source of energy. So, you know, we also saw another play here, and none of these plays are La Carreta, but in a certain way, still Puerto Rico is a source of energy that the characters go and you know, they sustain themselves with that energy. But I was wondering, because from here from the US, it makes so much sense to understand that, but I was wondering how people in Puerto Rico react to this idea, you know, that Puerto Rico has an idealized source of energy that you know, that feeds all these other Puerto Ricans that live in the mainland. And I don't know, right now there's a problem of la fuga de talento, I don't know how to translate that, but so I just wanted to know if you have a perception or an opinion, or have you measured, you know, the perception in Puerto Rico about the play?
Well, it's very complicated because I decided to move to Puerto Rico, and even though sometimes people ask me, when are you leaving? And I was like, I don't really want to go, I want to stay here, but if I would like to go, I would. The culture in Puerto Rico is really strange, and quiero dar las gracias enormemente to this festival for inviting us to come. because I think that it's important to have a representation about how theater is working in Puerto Rico, because it's probably not the same that in the US continental. I think that the audience that go to the theater and see our play, they can connect a lot with the play, but it's a very different experience when we saw it, when we show the play here in California. Because when you are living in a diaspora, or usually you can connect with the roots that you miss more efficient in a better way than when you have, for example, when we were talking to Quiara about making the play at San Juan, she was like, oh my God, I can't believe that these finals